Jai Hind students, welcome back to my Python tutorials. And today, again I'm continuing with the file handling that we discussed yesterday also. Some of the things of the file handling I covered yesterday. And today, I'm starting with the reading writing operation in a file. Though the reading sections already covered in the previous module. And today, you'll see basically the writing into a file. Now, in case of reading in a file, you have already discussed there is a read method, then there is a read line, and there is a read lines. Now, these are the three methods you have seen in case of reading operation in a file. Read simply read the entire file. Read lines simply read a particular line or single line at a time, and read lines will read the entire file in the form of a list. So you will get the output in the form of a list, and inside the list box everything will be there. Even in the read line, if you pass the parameter, it will just read that many bytes of the first line. So these are the three methods which help us to perform the reading operation in a file. Now for writing, we have two different methods. One is write method, another is a write line. Now these two methods we'll discuss today, write and write lines, which help us to basically write into a file. Now once you want to write a file, let's see a program how these two methods will help us to write into a file. Now previous day also I used an object. File1 I'm considering here as a file handler equal to, and then open method will open a file, and simply you just again mention ram.txt. This is a file name, and then comma w is a mode that you have to use for write. Now I'm trying to open a file ram.txt in the write mode, and write mode is a mode which is very required to write into a file. If a file is an existing file, it will override the contents of that file, and if the file is not there, then it will be created and writing will take place. This is what the purpose of a write mode. But if you want the read and write both, then instead of w you can say w plus. This w plus mode, file mode, will allow you to read and write simultaneously in the file. But simply w will always help us to write into file. Since we are talking about writing into a file, we are opening a file ram.txt with the w mode. I hope this is clear. After opening it, now you have to think how to write it. Now this object will help us to write the things. Now for example, if I want to write something in this file, suppose whole class data I want to write, and their name and marks I want to write, and there are 30 or 40 children we have. So what we'll do, we'll ask again a child n equal to, and then you say int then input method, under bracket you are saying enter the number of records you want to enter. Number of records, this is in quotes, and two again bracket you have to close. So n having the total number of children are in my class, and then you use this n for the for loop for I in n. For I in range, and inside the bracket say n. It means this loop will execute 0 to n minus 1. If n is a 40, so 0 to 39 means 40 children data will be there in it. And now you accept the data from the user. So suppose name equal to, and then input method, and inside it you say enter name. Now as you can understand, this name variable, this statement enter name will execute 40 times since n is a 40, assuming that, and this enter name will be asked again 40 times, and that is there in your for loop. That's why it will keep on asking you the name. You just provide the name 40 times, and same name if you want to store in that file. So just again you have to say object name, that is file1 dot, and there is a write method we have just seen, write, and inside bracket you just say name and bracket close. Now this write method accepts a string. Write method accepts a string as an argument, and here my name is a string. So this file whose handler is file1 will be written with the names 40 times, because again and again you are entering the name. But these all names should be together, like Ram, Mohan, Geeta, if you are writing the name like this. But if you want a file must have a terminator /n or handle kind of things, then simultaneously you can say file1 dot write, and inside the bracket in single quote you say /n. Now after entering the name, to differentiate the other name, to make a difference between the two names, or simply one name and then second name, third name, fourth name, if you want to make an entry like this, that's why I use the file handler to write the /n in the file. Both is a write. You can use this also, your file having the data, and that all will be together. And if after adding a name, if you will use this, these two methods will execute after executing the each for loop, and then simply you close the file, file1 dot close. That is very required to close a file after writing. So in this program, what is happening basically, we are trying to open a file, and write is my file mode that only allow us to write. If the ram.txt already exists, it will overwrite. If the ram.txt is not again exist, or is the first time you are again trying to open it in the write mode, file will be created and the data will be written in it. Now then another is, suppose a situation in my class there are 40 children whose name, class, section and everything I want to store. So I will ask the children or the users how many records he or she want to enter. That's why I accepted the n, and where I am asking enter the number of records that is stored in the n. I am using a for loop to again iterate that many times. That's why I use for I in range under bracket n is the total range, that is 0 to that -1, it will work. And inside it, whatever you want to accept, here in my example it's only name, it's not that only name you can accept. You can accept the name, you can accept the class, you can accept the section, you can accept that. Simple that you know how to accept it. So here for example I'm just accepting the name equal to input enter name. This message will execute that many times, and the same name I'm writing into the file again and again. I'm enclosing the /n or including the /n after each name. That's why my name will be like this, not like this, and then I'm closing the file. This is how to write into a file in Python. I hope this program will help you to understand this write and write lines, but how writing takes place in Python with the help of write method. Now if it is a write line, let's see this next program. So one method write you have seen, and the purpose of write, how write methods help us to write, but write always accept the string. It means your data that you are passing to the write method should be converted into the string. Even it is not a string, then only it will allow you to write. If you will pass something else, or if you will pass a number or integer, it will give you an error. That you have to keep in mind. Now see how the write line methods works. Now write line, now this is a method which basically help us to write into a file, but here the argument is a list. So keep that in mind. The value that you are passing as an argument to this write line method should be a list. It means what you have to do, either you create a list, you store the data in it and pass that list with the write line method of the file. That's all. It will allow you to write. Now see how this write line methods will help us to create a file and to write into it. Now open a file again. So file1 equal to open method, and inside the bracket again I am using the ram.text. For example, you can change it ram.text, and in writing mode I am again opening this file, which is very required. After this writing mode, we have to accept a list. Since I am talking about the list, so L equal to open close bracket empty list I am creating here, and then again suppose 4 things, 5 things, how many times you want. Suppose 5-person name I want to accept and I want to add into the list. So I have to use the for I in range, and inside the bracket I am just again mentioning 5. It means it will work 0 to 4, that is 5 times this loop will execute, and then accept the things like name equal to, and then say input method, and inside the input method I am saying enter your name. Now this message will again keep on executing 5 times, and you have to enter the name will be stored in the name, and then after that we have a list. You say l.append, and as you all know, append method accept or append a value and add at the last of the list. Since L is an empty list, so simply say append name. Is it fine? Append name, and you can say +/n if you want a terminator to be also added after each. This can be done, or simply you say l.append under bracket name, close the bracket, and then use that L to add into the file, that is your file object, file1 dot, then we have a write lines. This is method name, write lines, and which accept a list, so pass the list name. Your file having now each element of the list, that is called L, and the element of the list you are getting by the name variable that is in the loop. So this way we can use the write lines, and previous example you have seen how to write into file by the write method, and now you just come out from the loop and close it. So this is how write and write lines method of the Python works. I hope this program must be very clear. I am opening a file, trying to open a file ram.text in the write mode. So file exists or not exists, it will be overwritten and created. List, empty list I have created, then I am using a loop. You can accept the number from the user, and that many times you can use. Here I am assuming just to again execute it 5 times. So I will get 0 to 4 values, 5 times loop will execute, 5 times name will be again asked to be entered, and name will be stored in the name variable. Then the same name I am appending in the list, but now my list is having the 5 names that I have just again entered, and then same I am using to again write into the file by the help of file handler. Here file1 dot write line in bracket L will allow us to enter this list into my file whose handler is file1, and then file is supposed to be closed. I hope this is how write and write lines method works, and must be very clear to all. Now these two are there. There is one more method generally we use to talk, flush. Now flush is a method that we generally use with the file handler, file1.flush. Once we write in a file, basically that writing is there in the memory or buffer of our computer. Now from that buffer, the close method simply again write into the file. So file1.close simply again before closing send that contents of the buffer into the file. But if you want forcefully to write the contents of the file into your file without closing or before closing, then you just use the file1.flush. So flush is a method which help us to send or transfer the contents of the buffer into the file. So before closing you must use it. Once is a close method, after that the no meaning of flush. So if someone will ask you what is the purpose of flush method, the method forcefully flush the data from the buffer into the file, and after that you use the close method. Now removing the white spaces after reading from the file. You must have heard, or in the previous video I talked about the file having some white space. In text file it is a /n, that is endl, or you have a r/n, that is a carries return and endl, or spaces. This extra spaces that is there in the file even before the line or at the end of the line or in the beginning of the line can be removed by the strip method. So there are three methods we'll talk to remove the extra spaces or white spaces from the file. Simply what you have to do, if you want to use this method, let's see the program. Now this is a file that I'm just again opening, but here since I want to remove the space, so I'm trying to open in the read mode. As you must understand, I'm going to read the data. So same file ram.txt I'm trying to open in the read mode. After opening in the read mode, since I have to remove the spaces, whatever the spaces you want, you all know if this file 1 dot, there is a method called readline. Now if readline method I will use, it will return me the line, as you all know. So simply you say s equal to file1 dot readline. It will read one line of the file, that is the first line, and stored in s. And now you say t equal to s dot strip, open close bracket. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to remove the leading and trailing space from the s, and then see the print t will help you to see the line without trailing or leading spaces, since I use the strip. Now if I'll use, instead of a strip, if I'm using s dot l strip, it will remove the leading spaces from the line. So if there is a spaces here, it will remove this. So lstrip method will remove the leading space from the s, and then you see the print t. And if you want to remove the right space from the same file, instead of l you must again use the r strip. So your method is r strip, open close bracket. Now to remove the extra spaces, white spaces from the file, we have a strip or l strip or r strip, where a strip basically again removed the data from the spaces from the leading and trailing space side, and r strip from the right side and l strip from the left side. This is how to remove the spaces or white spaces from our file after reading. Now significance of the file pointer in the file handling. Now you have to understand one thing. You have seen the different modes of the file, and the by default mode are read. If you are not mentioning anything, the file by default is opening in the read mode. If I'm mentioning the write, then only write, and if I'm mentioning the a, it is a append. In the read mode, the file cursor or file pointer are there at the top of the file. That is the first line, first character. In the write mode, the file always again, if the file exists, then again in the top of that same you can say file pointer at the top, and in the case of append, at the last of the, at the end of the file. So it means depend on the which mode I am using to open a file, my file pointer will be accordingly. Now file pointer or cursor is basically the position in your file from where reading and writing can start. And as I mentioned, in the case of read mode, always your file cursor by default at the beginning of the file, the first line, first character. In the case of write, since again it's going to overwrite or going to create a file, that's why the file pointer should be again on the top of the file. And in case of append, your file pointer is always at the end of the file. That's why the append allows to write something at the end of the file, not at the beginning of the file. These are the three modes generally we use. It may be RB in the case of binary, WB and AB, but again the meaning is same. So significance of the file pointer, file handling, wherever your file pointer is, reading and writing will take place there only. That you have to understand. So it means if I'm saying file1 dot read line, since I'm not mentioning anything and by default the file that I'm using here by the file1 handler, it will pick up the first line. Now after picking the first line, your cursor will be at the beginning of the second line, as you must understand. So if I'll write the file 2.readline, it will give me the second line of the file. It will give me the first line because cursor was there. And if I'm using the file, here you have to use the file1 only because it's a handler, not 2. And if I'm using the file1.readline again, open close method, then it will pick up the third line. Why it is giving me the different again lines as an output? Even I am using the readline method is the same and the object or handler is the same. The reason, after picking this line, your cursor or pointer move to the beginning of the second line since I already read the first line. So this method, second method with the file1 will give me the second line as an output, and third again file1 dot readline will give me the third line. This is what the purpose of pointer. So to overwrite, you have to keep your again cursor at the beginning and then you have to overwrite, then it will overwrite maybe. Or in case of reading, where the file pointer, in case of writing, where the file is, and in case of append, where the pointer is, that you have to understand. So what is file pointer? File pointer is a position of cursor in your file in the buffer after opening it, and wherever the cursor is, the reading and writing takes place from there onward. That's a by default nature of the file in Python. And in case of append, only my cursor is at the end of the file, so that whatever I'm again writing will be at the end, not again disturbing the other things. That is what the file or significance of pointer in the file handling. So whatever the operation you performed on a particular file, you have to know where my current cursor position is, and accordingly the further operation can take place. Now the last is a standard input, output and error stream. Now whatever that so far I'm reading and writing are not the standard input and output. I'm trying to again store data in a variable, and then through that I'm again writing into a file. But there is a sys again module. So you import sys. It's a system module which basically help us to perform the standard input, output and error operation. Now once you have import sys, then you can use the sys dot std in, that is standard in, std out and sys dot, and then again sys dot std error. These are three again mode we are using for the standard input, the standard output, standard error. Now try to understand the standard input. Now once you are saying a stand in, it's basically again taking the input from the keyboard. Taking the input from keyboard, because keyboard is considered as an standard input device. So once I want to again read the data from or input the data from the keyboard, I have to use the sys dot standard in, and then under bracket we have to receive the input. This is what the standard in method of the sys module help us to perform. And if you want a standard output, you have to just remember a standard out is a standard output and a standard error. Once some error displayed and your monitor is considered to be the standard output device, as you all know because we always see the output here, monitor itself is known as a standard error also. So there are three different modes of the standard input and output that you have to understand. And we have a standard in, we have a standard out, and then sys dot, and then we have a standard ERR. Instead of this, you have to only write the ERR. So std out, std in, and std ER, these are the three again methods of the sys modules in Python which allows to have an input from the keyboard, have something displayed on the monitor without the print command. Mind it, you generally see the output by the print command, but here directly if you write this sys dot stand out, then write, it will work and it will write on the monitor. And then keep from keyboard, if you want to take the input standard in, you have to use an std error is a standard error file. This is a three again a standard operation we can perform. There in the books, not a tough task, hardly we use, but again if you want to perform something on the screen, you have to remember that. And sys is a module that you have to import at the beginning of the program, then only you can use it. So it means if you want to have an input, then simply you can write the sys dot std in and then dot, and then whatever the method you use, since it's a method, then you have used the file one dot read lines. This is how it will work. Or if you have an object that you can pass, or otherwise directly you can use the read line. Likewise sys dot std out, and then you can use the write method either with the file name file one dot write. This will work also, and likewise error. Now next is absolute and relative path. One more point we have today, absolute and relative paths of the file, relatives path of a file or directory. Now you must have heard about the file. Once I create, it is stored in a particular place in our computer, and there is a place again denoted by the directory name.